The purpose, we know the Montana Office of Public Instruction is charged with establishing an independent negotiated rulemaking committee. That's you. The NRC will consider issues to reach consensus on proposed and amendments for Chapter 53. So the English language arts and literacy content standards, and then consult on the preparation of the economic impact statement that reflects the most accurate needs of schools to facilitate local practice. Why are we here? Because it is required by Montana Code Annotated. So let's take a look at those notes. If you can pull those up, and we'll just give people like probably, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes to look those over, and we'll just see if there are any edits or approval. There's the link there.
I'll drop the minutes in too right now. That is the consensus package.
Yeah, yeah, that's right, the minutes. Yeah, on the one hand, I'm in a coat and JC's in a tank top. We're in 2 different climates here. Okay, I'm just going to ask and see if anyone needs more time, because I know these were sent out, so it's possible you've already looked at them. If you have any comments for edits or anything, just let Amy and Claire know. Okay. Is there any disagreement with the approval of the minutes? Okay, let's rock and roll then. All right. So are we okay with roll call by your names being recorded by Amy? Okay, that's looking good then. All right, so this is unusual for me. I've not ever been asked to join an NRC again for something that was needed to be looked at. And so I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to ask that you have a couple of folks from the Office of Public Instruction on your committee, and I am going to ask them to talk about that because that I think will give you a better grounding for what brings us together today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Diane. Good morning, everyone. We are here together again today. And I don't want to predict, but I'm hoping we will not really be here for the whole time. I think it's a pretty quick discussion this morning, but the superintendent was aware that there was a bill that was put onto, that was brought out, a draft, that included cursive in it. And it didn't seem that cursive should really exist in a bill form and a law form. And so she said, well, since this is happening over here in this bill form, it probably belongs more in a content standard. And we happen to be working on these ELA content standards right now. So she asked us to bring us together to discuss putting cursive into a couple of our grade levels. And so we've come up with a couple of ideas for the ways to bring that in that we want you all to just take a look at, have some discussion around, see what you think. And we really are just targeting those a couple of grade levels that we had some suggestions on. And so Amy, if you wouldn't mind pulling up those grade levels for us, I think I saw that you had that kind of ready to go.
So you really have, knowing this, have worked on a proposal for this committee to
take a
use.
look at.
Okay.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And that's going to be in, I believe it's in the consensus package. And we would go to second grade.
Yep.
First. And in second grade, as you remember, in our encoding section, which are some of our new standards, we talk about the printing upper and lowercase letters with automaticity and accuracy. And in second grade, we thought we bring to you as a look, introduce cursive. So then it's this idea of just sort of introducing cursive in second grade as students are working on really getting that automaticity and accuracy, bringing in this idea of cursive here. And then to grow that going into third grade, again, we have the printing in upper and lowercase letters with automaticity and accuracy in third grade, and begin developing accuracy and automaticity with cursive. And then the idea that we think of is that in guidance, we can maybe provide some more guidance around what that would look like, what sort of, assessment that would be, kind of those formative assessments in the classroom that teachers could do for this, but not really in the standard locking that into that. Just this idea of introducing and having students really be aware that they're just an understanding of what cursive is, how to write it, and how to read it ultimately at the end of the day in this way. So this was the proposal in this second and third grade that we had thought might be an idea to bring in this idea of cursive. It does not look like the bill was there originally is going to go forward, but it was out there. There's a lot of talk around this, and this was a way that the superintendent thought it could be incorporated here in the content standards, which is probably, maybe a better place for it to live. So Marie, did you have anything to add to that?
I was just gonna say, she also asked, is this the right developmental age to bring these in, and wanted your guys' expertise on if we spread it beyond this, if third grade's too soon. Also, in looking at that bill language, it talked a lot about being able to read the Constitution and other primary documents. It didn't say Constitution, it said primary documents. And then it also just signatures and things like that were the thinking behind it. But I will say the superintendent's just bring it to the committee and see what they say. They're the experts and really want to know what their perspective was on this.
Okay, so thank you for raising your hands, and let's just hear some discussion around this. So you raise your hand and I will just stack you like we did last time. So Clifton and Justine.
Well, thank you. When I got the email stating that we were going to come back and meet again, especially over this subject, I about fell out of my chair. I'm a huge proponent of cursive. I used it before we even started homeschooling as a bridge. During the summer, I had my sons I bought a cursive book, and I printed off sheets so I didn't have to waste the actual pages of the book. and they've consistently out of the same book been learning, even during bridge times while they're still in school, since it wasn't offered. And the reason that I chose it was it does amazing for integrating fine motor skills. Regardless if a student has a disability or not, it helps to bring in those fine motor skills, and it's a sensory that allows you to have the flow of the words, and it's an amazing. I've seen great from my own children things that it helped connect pieces of their reading, and it actually helped connect pieces of the writing that they hadn't noticed before. My one son has dyslexia, and it actually helped with the misshaping of the word or the letters when they were writing before. He used to misshape a B and a D. And after we integrated this into his learning during the bridge season of school, we were able to actually see that go away. He was able to, every time after that, after we went through the entire alphabet of the cursive and then went through the whole writing, it was amazing how his handwriting actually got cleaner, and it was very precise because of I truly believe it was because of implementing this tactic into his schooling.
Okay,
So I
thank
just
you.
wanted to add that of my perspective as the parent.
Okay, thank you, Clifton. Justine and then McCall.
Good morning, everyone. In terms of development, this feels appropriate where it would land. My request would be to support this with some strong research and evidence. What are we using to determine that this is the proper direction? And then coming from the lens of where I need to I will be supporting my school, my teachers, our district. This is another resource that I'll have to purchase. So, and additional training that I'll need to provide my teachers. We had the MCLP grant a few years ago, which was great. We could purchase Handwriting Without Tears as a supplemental resource. I can no longer do that because we couldn't afford that with our district. And so that created some problems and some issues. And not all of our curriculums are building in cursive. So I just want to note that for everyone else, that this will be an additional cost and additional training that would probably need to be recognized and go in the economic impact statement. I don't know if that will, or form the questionnaire. And then additionally, I've seen some legislation, I don't know where this is at now, with an emphasis on media literacy. So that might be additional work. I don't know if that comes into some of this too, but a focus on our students also typing. Again, I don't know where that's at, but I did see an initial introduction. So comments for today. Thank you.
Thanks, Justine. So McCall and then Jody.
Thank you. I did want to note that both the cursive bill and the media literacy bill were tabled. And the reason for that is because legislators, regardless of their good ideas, don't get to tell schools what they have to put in their standards. And so we advocated really hard that, we leave these types of decisions up to negotiated rulemaking committees and the Board of Public Ed. I have no problem with cursive. I want to say that right from the beginning. But Justine, I think you make a really good point. There's currently not funding for this. We'd have to go fight at the next legislative session, which won't come up until 2027, for funding to fund cursive. And you'd be required to do it until that point. My suggestion is, if we're going to include it here, I think there's some wordsmithing that needs to be done. But if folks don't feel comfortable putting it here, and again, you're not required to put it here, you could put it in a guidance document where it gives choice to school districts and encourages them to look at this if they have the funding. I think that's a really good option. I also don't want to get sideways with the superintendent if this was a specific suggestion of hers, but I just think we do really need to be cognizant of what schools are currently doing and what we're asking them to do, not based on anything. Thank you.
Whenever you're ready, Jody.
Okay, so I went and pulled the book off the shelf, handwriting research. And as far as like what you guys have put in, it's pretty consistent with what researchers are saying about the developmental time that you should be introducing these things. And so like what you've written, I think follows research pretty well. I am also not against cursive. And I think handwriting is important, especially in, when we're thinking about brain function and literacy development. There's some significant studies that tie early handwriting skills to brain development. And so I think that handwriting is important. My concern is, much like McCall said, this is something that was not anticipated and would be a significant cost. And how many teachers are already doing this in some capacity in their classrooms already? I would say probably in your K through 2, you're going to find it, whether it is in negotiated rules and in administrative rules anyway. So that is just my big concern. As far as what you guys have put down developmentally, I think it's right on as far as what research says. I'm just concerned with the price tag, especially if that legislative action has been tabled, how we address this going forward. The research says we lose about $4 billion a year in the United States with students who cannot read or write, or adults that cannot read or write either in print or in cursive. And so it is a significant thing that's important. And I believe keyboarding is as well. It's just, is this the right time to jump into that?
Okay, Clifton, and are there others of you who would like to comment?
So I don't want to take up a lot more time, but I just wanted to add, when I did my research for this, to help support with the amount of information that's out there, there's 21 other states that already have implemented this as a requirement. So there is a quite a bit of data out there, and there's a diverse amount of states in rural and urban environments that could help definitely support any type of research that needs to be done on this.
Barbara? And then Janelle.
Just want to concur with some of the previous statements about cost. I absolutely see the benefit of cursive, and as a principal, we implemented cursive in the schools that I oversaw. However, it comes at a significant cost, and it either needs to be something that we develop at the OPI state level that we can provide to schools, or schools are going to have to buy it. And as a large district, that is a pretty prohibitive cost. And when we talk about all of the different curriculum purchases we have to make, this new revision will require some districts to be looking at additional curriculum and materials. This can become a really huge cost, but handwriting are pretty expensive programs. They can be as much as $10+ a student. And so when you start to look at that cost, I just am not sure that it should be written in the standards, but maybe should be set aside in guidance.
Justine? And then Barbara.
Mine's maybe more of a question for anyone that's been paying attention more than I have. We had a high quality instructional material bill that was introduced. Can I ask where that's at? Could this fall under that?
I'm happy to answer that if it's helpful. That bill is actually heading to the floor today. As you guys know, they're really close to, you might know, they're really close to transmittal, so things are moving really fast, and there's a bunch of bills that they're hearing sort of all at once. So it hasn't even been heard on the House floor yet. I think that's actually literally happening today. But I can tell you that, or maybe it happened yesterday. I can tell you that that bill is only pertaining to math right now. It's only pertaining to the math standards that were just adopted by the Board of Public Ed. In order to add anything specific to that bill, they will have to amend that in 2027.
Thank you, McCall. Marie?
I could add in relation to that with the new Montana Reads grant, we will be reviewing curriculum with the Literacy Leadership Network. It did not mention any form of handwriting or cursive within those curriculum reviews. And again, they would be recommended reviews. But I just wanted to say that's part of that work that's happening since it's not included over on the HQIM. It is being done elsewhere. We could consider bringing in cursive, but I don't even know of any review tools, but that also wouldn't bring a cost benefit to districts. It would just be a recommendation.
And Christy's next, but I'll just read what McCall provided in the chat there, that it's scheduled for its second reading today, and then she has attached a link for those of you who are wondering about that. Christy?
I was just sort of thinking of timing for this, in that when our implementation date of these, may be something to consider, kind of sort of like what you're saying, you know, McCall, and thinking forward for the legislature, like that you're saying as the negotiated rulemaking committee, ooh, the costs of this are going to be more than sort of the package originally thought. And we will get some information on that in the economic impact statement. I think that you've pointed that out clearly. So we'll definitely have some questions on that in the economic impact statement, so we can get some really firm numbers and ideas on that. But thinking of the implementation time of this, if it will align to maybe after that next in 2027, I just can't remember the implementation date for these, then potentially there could be that. But of course, it's still a what if for the legislature, but just there could be some timing there that might be workable for this. And I think also, McCall, you mentioned maybe, no one seems to be against cursive. And if we keep it in here, how can we keep it in here so that it's, you mentioned some wordsmithing. Maybe there's some suggested words that we have to make this, as suggested as possible, and then providing as much information in the guidance. There may be a balance there that we could come up with. Just putting that out there as an idea.
Okay, it's starting to sound like there's combination of thought that's going to land at a proposal here pretty soon. So Janelle, your hand went down before, so I didn't call on you again. So I apologize if I missed you, but it's your turn now, and then Barbara will go right after you.
No, that's fine. I had to go step away from my other thing real quick. So
Okay.
I just wanted to talk about, again, the cost associated, and with my small schools, with losing some funding for other things, I think, just adding one more thing on there is just going to put them over the top. So anything we can do to not have additional costs, I think would be really important, because, and again, I think a lot of them are probably doing this already, but they're not doing it because they have to, and would have to have extra materials and things like that. So I just want us to consider that cost factor.
Whenever you're ready, Barbara. Oh, you got it.
Sorry, I'm on a loaner computer and I'm having a really hard time with it. So
Well,
I feel
we'll
like
be patient.
I'm like new to computers today. So a couple things, thoughts. I just wanted to circle back to the cost. And in our district, schools that are implementing it, it's their PTAs that pay for the materials. And so it is a cost well above and beyond what we have available in our curriculum department to buy materials. So I just want to say that again. I think that's really important here, that there is a cost. Or the other thing that happens is schools buy it once and then they keep copying it and violating copyright, which puts schools at risk as well. And so I think schools that are teaching it right now are off. Many of them are violating copyright law and copying materials that they had already purchased a while ago. My second piece is, when it's written into the standards, what does assessment look like? Are we assessing how students read it on the massed assessment? Are we going to have a written portion now where we're assessing student handwriting? So I'm wondering about, if it's actually written into the standards, how will we assess it?
Okay, additional thoughts? And then a proposal to help us move ahead with this. Justine?
I my additional thought, Barbara, I agree with everything that you just said. I'm a proponent of this. I do know that there's research out there that supports the connection and building students' fluency, automaticity, specifically in phonics, like understanding how the letters and sounds connect. I wonder what wordsmithing could happen where maybe we provide choice. Handwriting directly relates to our writing standards. That's part of the recommendations from the IES practice guides with writing. So can we wordsmith this to be a choice? Is that an option? Maybe that's just my question without a proposal.
Okay. Christy's right behind you here, so maybe she can do both, share what she has and respond.
I think a choice would be challenging in the rule. I don't think that we would be able to have it as like an option. It's like either yes or no, but kind of coming back to Barbara's question, and I think Justine, this touches a little on yours. Right now, a proposal is in 2nd and 3rd grade. And Barbara brought up MAST and assessment in that. And we don't, we do have this printing with automaticity as new this year. And then how is that assessed? Would that be assessed on our statewide assessment ultimately? So I wonder if for cursive, maybe the idea that you are coming to is, hey, let's keep it out of the 3rd grade standards, but maybe leave it in the 2nd grade standards. It's then not as impactful on the MAST assessment, but maybe keeping it there just as a thought. I'm not going to make that proposal right now. I just thought I would, as part of furthering the discussion, for someone else to maybe consider that as an idea.
Yeah, okay. Jody, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I guess my question is this something that could live in guidance under the writing document, that this is a critical part of writing and literacy development? These are the suggested kind of ages of automaticity for printing, introduction of cursive. Because I just feel like if we write it into rule, Barbara brought up the point about assessment. It has to be assessed somewhere. What does that look like? And so even though we have some time with MAST, we really come back to how is it going to be assessed? And so can it be just a part of the guidance document that we put in for writing this kind of foundational piece and not have it written into rule, which would require, school districts buying new curriculum, it become part of the state assessment, but the teachers still have that guidance that, yes, this is a very important thing when it comes to literacy development. Here's the time and place that you can put these in, and this is what it might look like. So I guess that's kind of my question.
Okay, so we've got Clifton, Christy, and Justine that'll help us out here.
So I'm tracking along this, and I'm thinking now, as a product of Great Falls School District myself, I was taught cursive. What was the mindset of removing this from the standards to begin with? Like what hurdles were they trying to sidestep, or road bumps? Like, I'm kind of curious now as to how we got here, as to why it is not even a thing and it's not budgeted for to begin with. I would like, as a parent perspective, I'd like to see some sort of mindset of the folks, the experts that went to school for this. Because for me, I received this and I loved, that's why I brought my kids back to it. So I'd like to see maybe some understanding of why we're here.
Those are great questions. I mean, not that you need my, judgment on that, but I'm hoping someone will be able to answer that there.
Yeah, I can jump in, Diane, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
the
please. Yeah.
historical background. So, Clifton, previous to the Common Core standards coming along, in 2012, we had the standards were much broader and sort of at benchmark type standards at 4th, 8th, and 12th grade, and were not this level of detail and didn't include this in it. This is just, so cursive was just more not moved along in the standards when it came along. They weren't in there and then removed, I guess I would say. It was just, that was kind of common practice and had always gone on, if I'm speaking that properly, if that makes sense. So it wasn't that it was taken out, it just wasn't moved along in the specificity of the reading standards, if that makes sense, when they made a large change, 12, 14 years ago, 13 years ago or so. So I hope that clarifies that just a little bit in that regard. And then my next, kind of to answer the assessment piece, really, the massed assessment doesn't go into every single word of every single standard, right? It's like pulling out those pieces in the survey of standards to get that assessment of students. So it wouldn't necessarily be that it's a standard that's targeted for this, because we're really getting that broad survey of comprehension, understanding, and things like that for those standards, because it's limited in its scope anyway, and so it's pulling out those key pieces. So I hope that makes sense too. Sorry, and I will lower my hand and
Okay. And Justine?
I was gonna, I don't know about my proposal. I'm proposing we don't include this in the third grade standards. I think, was it originally just printing upper and lowercase letters? Was that language already in there? I can't remember. Or was this completely new proposed? Go ahead, Marie, sorry.
So it was only originally in the first grade encoding
Okay.
and not beyond that.
Okay, so I would like to propose we don't include this in third grade. And then in second grade, we include this because if the intention is to be able to read primary sources, that somehow we can include that with the decoding and say, read or decode words written. I don't know if we even have primary documents that would be legible for, or within Lexile developmentally appropriate second. Read words in cursive. I'll just throw that out there, and then we can do whatever with it.
Okay, so you're proposing that some possible language, you're saying let's not do this in third grade, let's do this in second grade, it fits in second grade. And then you had some proposed language. I'd like them to just try and capture that. So I know that you were sort of off the cuffing there. So let's see if we can get it written down to look at and then improve it, Justine.
Yeah, decode words written in cursive.
Claire, are you writing that?
Yep,
Where are you?
it's there. It's at the very top. I think you're still in the box. Okay, it's gone. I'll do it again.
Okay, go ahead, McCall, and then Barbara.
Thank you. So I have a question and then sort of a question for clarification, then a comment. So would we be getting rid of what's on the left then? We would just be adding what's on the right?
You mean the original proposed red that they brought with them?
Correct. Is that
Yes,
going
so-
away and now we're just talking about the decode words written in cursive?
So Justine, are you proposing that this is what it says as opposed to the red?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so my two things. The first letter needs to have an ing at the end. So if it's decoding, it's fine. But I wonder too if, based off of what Christy said about encouragement language, so that's not required, you could put encouraging decoding words written in cursive, something like that. I guess I'm just not sure about if it's written in the standards. To me, from what I understand, that's what we expect students to know, understand, and be able to do. And so I'm not sure that by putting it in the standards that we can make it optional, but if we were going to think about that, I have some thoughts in mind. Thank you.
Okay, so Barbara and then Christy.
I appreciate all the things Justine said about the standard. I wanted to just circle back one thing to Clifton. I think also part of the reason that we saw handwriting disappear is the cost. I think we have to say that again. School budgets have decreased for many, many years. And as those have decreased and the cost of materials has increased, I think that would be a definite reason. That's one of the first things I remember going as a teacher was access to those materials. So I do think cost has been a contributing factor to handwriting instruction since probably the mid 2000s. So I just wanted to add that in. Now circling back to this, I just wonder why it can't just sit in guidance. Because I feel like it cursive fits in a lot of different areas. It's decoding. It could be in reading where you could have we're including primary sources. It's some of in a reading standard. It could be in writing. It could be in encoding. There's just so many different places that cursive can fall. So I'm just, because it can have broad reaching effects, I wonder if we couldn't just really highlight its importance in guidance and make sure that it's threaded throughout guidance. I know that as a curriculum director, when we do reviews, we use guidance and we use those guidance documents. And so I'm just wondering about that as a solution.
Okay. Go ahead, Christy. And when you say solution, I hear proposal. So just for the committee member to keep in mind what you just said really is this is a possible solution to all the things we're hearing from each other here. Okay, Christy and then Aaron.
I hear what Barbara's saying, and I definitely agree that robust guidance is key. I do feel like the way that it's written originally with the introduced cursive, I feel like the introduced cursive does exactly sort of what we're saying. It's just that reminder, introduce cursive writing to students so they can write and read it is sort of inherent in that, and it's not a definitive as far as an assessment. There's not a definitive they have to do it perfectly by the end of second grade. They have to, it's just really introduce it so there's some familiarity with it. And I feel like that introduce cursive provides that broadness here in second grade. And that I think that continuing through in the guidance with third grade or beyond would be potentially key. So I think my proposal would be to leave the second grade proposed kind of as we have it with introduced cursive to kind of work on that. If we wanted decoding, I'm worried about having it in the encoding section down here, but I mean, I agree exactly though with what Justine just said, in that it's the idea is to read and write it. But I think if we're introducing cursive, then maybe that's inclusive of that. So in my mind, introduce cursive sort of does what we're kind of talking about here. So I would go back to a proposal of keeping what we have in the red there as a next proposal. Because I think it kind of includes what Justine was talking about as well in second grade. And then I still propose, I'm fine with having it out of third grade and into guidance documents.
Okay. Aaron, Clifton, and then Crystal. Oh, you're muted, Aaron.
Thank you. I put my hand down, but did not click the unmute. I think it's a valuable skill that we need to include somewhere, but I also agree. I think it should be in guidance rather than in the standard as a mandate for schools. I think we should, I guess, consider that we put a lot of effort into writing quality standards that require some high priorities for schools, and we should lean on those and then put it in guidance. So my proposal is that we don't change the package, but just include cursive in the guidance.
Okay, Clifton and then Crystal.
So I think it's time I kind of case it this way. So you either handle it now or you handle it in 2027, because constituents are going to go back after the legislature, and this will come up again in the legislature if it's not handled during the rulemaking committee. I feel like as a committee, if we don't put this in here as a standard, we're giving our power away, and the legislature will step in, as McCall had stated before. They already put this forward as a bill. The superintendent went to bat saying that, no, this is something that we can handle at the negotiated rules committee. If we don't handle it, then it will come back. It will come as a law. They're going to find a way in order to do that. That's how I'm kind of perspective of how this is going to shape out if it's not addressed in the way it was presented.
Crystal and then McCall.
I don't have any passion one way or another about cursive, but I am a little bit concerned about having a standard that the verb is introduce. I feel like that's a really hard thing to assess. Like, how do we assess a student on whether they've been introduced to something? So I would propose that if we were going to keep it, we need to have a different verb to help assess the standard.
Okay, and McCall. And then I do also want to add that Barbara asked a question of this committee about why can't this be part of our guidance documents? And so if there's someone who can talk about that, I think that would be important. McCall, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to respond a little bit to Clifton. So the legislature can put all they want in statute about what students need to know, understand, and be able to do, and what should be in content standards. But unless it's in the content standards, schools don't have to utilize it. So that is one thing in my advocacy that I'm constantly talking to legislators about. This specific one actually went in a legislative goals section. So just because even if the bill would have passed, we would not have to do this today. So I guess the responsibility and the authority lives with this committee and the OPI and the Board of Public Ed, not with the legislature. So they can come back year after year after year and they can say, I think you guys need to do cursive. And we're going to come back year after year after year and we're going to talk to experts and they're going to say, don't do it. And we're not going to do it. So I just think there is sort of a process that has to be acknowledged and maybe respected, even that, like, you guys are all experts. I'm not, but I am an expert in board authority and like what we can do and what legislature can do. And so I just want to make that really clear. And wherever we land today, we will be fine with it. But I just think that it's really good to acknowledge that, because I think sometimes people think that just because legislators have good ideas and they want to put something in statute, it doesn't mean it belongs in the standards. They're not experts.
Okay, so any comments for Barbara around her question for the value of it in guidance documents as opposed to in the standard? Any additional comments around that? Christy?
Yeah, I guess I would start with the cost that you all are talking about. I think so if we to consider from your perspectives, if it's in the guidance, it doesn't become really part of the economic impact and it doesn't become part of any conversation. However, if it's in the standard, it becomes part of the economic impact and part of the economic impact conversation. And then that becomes this important piece. It sounds like many of you have pointed out the research and support that focusing on this for our young learners in literacy, it helps students with special needs, it helps students. There's a lot of, I felt, support, and the barrier that we're discussing is really the economic piece. And so a way to address that economic piece is to maybe get the information that we need to tell, like, hey, this is going to cost more, let's fund it. It's worth it for our students. That's what I hear coming through. And so that may be my response to the guidance versus the standard. Again, keeping it maybe just in second grade, sort of as I think we've come to that agreement, but that's my thought.
Okay, Crystal and then Justine.
One thing that I recall from our previous standards discussions is that anything that seemed like it was a how, we put in guidance. And if the standard is printing upper and lowercase letters, how we're teaching that whether it's cursive or not, seems like that would be a guidance thing. So we're teaching upper and lowercase letters. The guidance document says that we can introduce cursive, upper and lowercase letters.
Okay, Justine and then Janelle.
I was just going to agree exactly with what Crystal stated. We took that stance, I believe, with some of the other standards. If it became too like, this is exactly how you do it, we made sure it went in the guidance. So I think many people are going to be referring to that document anyway. And again, I hear that can go in the economic impact statement. I feel like I've filled those forms out before, knowing that we need money and funding for things, especially with the MAST assessment, and we haven't seen any dollars from OPI to support computer-based through-year assessments. So I hesitate to write this into standards, knowing that past practice has not been to fund some of these things.
Okay, so Janelle, you go ahead and go, and then Christy, is that your you wrote something down there? So after Janelle, I'd like you to read that to the committee, okay?
I just didn't want to forget it.
Yes, perfect, yeah.
So I guess being a realist, it sounds to me like this is somewhat of a political issue and that it probably needs to be in here. And so I think our task probably is figuring out how we word it so that we can live with whatever it says, because I mean, things can get put into this after we're done. We'd rather be part of that process, I think, than after the fact. So how do we make it work and work for our schools, but have it be in here? Because I think it's going to be in there and we want to be part of that process, not, you know, we don't want to have it happen to us. We want to be part of it. So that's just my reality check, I guess, is I think if it came to us the way it did, it probably should be in there or needs to be in there or will be in there.
Whenever you're ready, Christy.
Okay, as you were talking and making some points, I agreed with sort of the Crystal and Justine on sort of the how and not, you know, making sure that lived in guidance. And so it made me wonder if in this for second grade, where it's writing, they demonstrate encoding skills by writing upper and lowercase letters with automaticity and accuracy, because that's sort of what's coming over from first grade, I believe, and then just including cursive for this as a proposal for the second grade one.
Okay, so I'm going to ask if there's any disagreement to the proposal. Jody? You'll have to turn your mic on. That's all right. It'll give you a chance. You'll say it better now.
Gotcha. With the way it's written right there, that to me says that they need to have automaticity and accuracy with both print and cursive, which in second grade, I'm not sure I would want to go there with second grade. And I mean, I understand the discussion about introduction and how that's, you know, a difficult verb to put in there, but the way that's written is they would need to have automaticity and accuracy with both manuscript and cursive, which I think developmentally might be asking a bit much. Like I would be fine with this if it were third grade or further down, but for second grade, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the wording for that one.
Okay, Clifton?
So before when I spoke, I had mentioned that there's 21 other states that have already implemented this into their course standards. And how it is labeled now, I'll use just for an example, not saying we have to follow this. California actually has it as third grade language standard to write legibly in cursive and joined italics, allowing margins and correct spacing between letters in a word and word sentences. This has been implemented since 2010. So this is a standard that has already been used and students in other states have an advantage because they're getting taught this specific standard. Regardless, I guess, of how we're going to figure out how to fund it, that should be presented to the districts of how they want to in the impact statement. I think it still needs to be addressed that our students are going to be at a disadvantage compared to other places that people are learning this if we do not implement it.
Would you like to read that just one more time, Clifton?
Sure.
So he says, I'm not saying this is the wording we have to use or where we put it, but if you just read it slowly one more time, because some people are actually pretty visual, so it'll take a second time for them to even capture.
So for grade 3 language standard, write legibly in cursive or joined italics, allowing margins and correct spacing between letters in a word and words in a sentence.
Okay, thank you, Clifton. This is a hard one, isn't it, guys? It's okay. It's hard. It would be already solved if it wasn't difficult. So, and Barbara has another comment. Any other comments? Anything that you think might bring us together on this?
I don't know if this is going to bring us together, but I just want to say I absolutely agree cursive is absolutely important. I agree with everything that you're saying, Clifton. When I I just looked at the Iowa impact statement for their bill. They estimated in their state a $400,000 to $550,000 cost for implementing cursive in their state. They estimate $10 to $15 a student. For us, that would be an annual cost if it was just in second grade between $15,000 and $20,000 a year. That is a significant cost when we are our AA districts are all facing cuts. Last year, we made millions of dollars of cuts and cut almost 100 different staff positions in our district. Schools are getting leaner and we have less resources to work with. And I just can't stress enough, the economic impact of this is hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is just one small change, but if we're going to put it in here, then we have to be cognizant of where do we recommend schools take this from, or how do we provide this resource at a state level, develop our own resource that people can use for free. There's got to be a solution to it. Otherwise, we have to be very cognizant of the fact if it's in the standards, that is a significant cost to every district in the state.
So I'm wondering if, based on what Barbara just talked about, I'm wondering if some of you who do know and understand where education money comes from, because you're talking specifically about how would this be funded, at the state level or at a district level. So I'd appreciate it if some of you who know and understand that could just talk about that. I'm sort of thinking probably McCall has a good idea about that, and Christy and Marie and whoever else. So if that's really what we're talking about, costs, let's provide some additional information of where could that come from and how would that then affect other things. So Christy?
Yeah, absolutely. So we at the OPI are charged with implementing the laws that the legislator put into place. We work the Board of Public Education, who adopts standards. But as far as the budgetary pieces go, those are decided sort of at the legislative level and based on the school formulas and any bills that the legislature passes that allow us to move funds to schools. So the example that we talked about a little bit earlier was that high quality instructional materials bill, largely based on math. Because of the economic impact statement that the math standards came back with and having that large price tag for these new standards, that's an actual response that you can see that happened with the legislature. So, but it does have to start with the legislature in those instances in order to bring that money through to the schools. So I hope that clarifies a little bit.
Okay,
Budgeting piece.
anything else to add around that budgeting piece? Barbara?
I can speak to the district level. I manage our curriculum budgets. For us, if we were mandated to teach that, it would require us to look at what we were going to cut. And so I can equate that to what it costs for us to implement our annual science curriculum. So it would come out of somewhere. And so at the district level, when the money gets to us, it's coming from somewhere. It's either going to impact another program that we offer, or it's going to impact staffing, but it's coming from somewhere because we don't have extra money in our budgets for increased costs. When we get a 3% inflationary increase, it just doesn't provide money for increased or additional costs. So at the district level, and I think, I know, Justine, I don't know where you're at in your district, but for us, it would come off of something else. So we would lose something to gain that. And so I just think that's important to know.
Okay, McCall and then Justine.
I don't have anything to say. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if your hand went down or just what happened there. I apologize. Justine?
I'm going to echo Barbara. I have no disagreement with teaching cursive writing. I do think it is important. But I can't put these in here knowing that I don't even really have dollars to allocate to curricular resources. I have to beg, borrow, and plead. I don't really have a budget right now because of all the cuts that we've had to make. And I know our teachers in our district want to do the best for the kids. And if this is in there, we will have to fund it and again, cut something else. I think the difference between kind of what Barbara and I are advocating for and trying to provide that perspective for in relation to what Clifton has an opportunity to do as a parent who gets to provide school at home for his children. He can make those decisions kind of with flexibility. We don't necessarily have that opportunity to do so within a public large school district. So looking at I think 35 teachers around the district, I would need to provide resources for and make sure that happens. Again, we're looking upwards of tens of thousands of dollars each year that we can't allocate and again would have to cut from somewhere else. So I think it's important. I would agree with putting this. I want to propose again to put this in guidance.
So I'm going to hold that proposal and then we're going to check it out. And then I want to talk about what it means, just in terms of the process of how this works. You're quite far apart on this, which is, I suspect, why it didn't go anywhere in the legislature, because there's something happening there. So it's not really a surprise. But I do, Clifton wants to make a comment, and then after that, I want to talk about the process, what that means for your packages, because essentially we have opened it back up. So I just want to talk about that. It's neither good nor bad. Of course, I always want to come to a consensus, but I do want you to know and understand what that means. So Clifton?
So thank you, Justine, especially for mentioning my current situation. This would actually tip the needle in a direction of us wanting to reintegrate back into schools. This is one of the things that my wife and I had considered when we chose this path. So by moving in this direction, this is for me a path in the right direction of what would bring back the almost 10,000 homeschooled students in the state. I know this is one of the curriculums that they follow. This is something that is a very big base of their beliefs. So I just wanted to add that portion in.
Okay, Marie?
I appreciate all of your perspectives and the conversation you're having and your thoughtfulness and why you are in the roles you're in, and that's why you're part of the negotiated rulemaking committee. In looking at the language we have now in second grade, I think we can do some wordsmithing there to clear it up and then potentially take it away from third grade. I don't know if we've made that formal proposal yet.
It's still sitting on the table, yeah.
In third grade.
Yeah.
I liked Crystal's idea of introduces in a verb. So we could bring in printing in upper and lowercase letters with automaticity and accuracy, including the introduction of cursive as a potential clearing up of that verb.
So here are the three proposals that have been made, just so you understand really where we're at and where you are as a committee. One is to, so you have just proposed to change the language, and I think you're keeping that in second grade, with third grade not having a change to it. And there is also a proposal that it not be a content standard, but that it would be in guidance documents. So those are really the three things that people have been proposing. And so let me just talk about, what is it? It's, it's possible that we might be unable to find a solution. It is possible that we could find a solution that meets the elements. So we're looking at how could we possibly do this without costing more, and where then would the money come from under the current system, that it doesn't appear that there's going to be more coming in. There is a special bill that is brought to the table, I believe, having its second reading. This is just with math. And so that there wouldn't be anything to cover this, and it's a large cost. There's no disagreement with cursive. That is not what I'm hearing here at all, is there's no disagreement with cursive. And so it's around is it even possible to do in the schools as they are currently funded? And so here's what it would look like. This whole package is a consensus, or it isn't. So it isn't, we came to consensus on everything, and those would have consensus protections, so to speak. And then just this one would not have a consensus protection. So what that means is if you come to consensus on the package as a whole, only very minor changes can be made to that package. And so the process it will go through, it will go back to the superintendent. And if you've come to consensus, only minor things would occur. If it goes back and there's not a consensus on the whole package, it's possible that the superintendent would decide to use this exact language and send it to the Board of Public Education. And then McCall, if you talk about what happens there then at the Board of Public Education, so because there's quite a lot in there, and you could speak to that better than me.
Diane, could I jump in real quick first?
Yeah.
I have sorry, McCall, I just want to say something really quick first, because you started talking a little bit about, the economic impact. And one thing that you said, I think that is really key here, is that the committee is not objecting to cursive. Everyone sees the value of it. That's been sort of
exactly
throughout this. And it really isn't, we aren't deciding standards based on the economic impact. We're deciding the best things for students. And what I've heard is that there's a general consensus that yes, ideally this is the way to go. We feel that, we see the research, and then but then the concern is the economic impact, which is where the economic impact statement comes in later to give that actual information. And so I just want to point out, let's put those things apart, and we need to focus on what's best for the kids and focusing in on the students here. So sorry to interrupt, but
no, that's okay. That's okay. Go ahead, McCall.
So once the package comes to the Board of Public Ed, they'll take the first meeting to review all of the changes. So here it'll be very different. It's basically an entire repeal, an entire replace. And then the next meeting, they'll have a conversation, probably bring in some experts, folks that participate on this committee, and we'll do a little bit of a Q&A with the board for them to ask questions about the standards. They'll then go out for what's called rulemaking, and we'll do a period of time in which there's public comment that's taken on the rules. That's when we get lots of public comment, if there are controversial areas or folks really like certain areas. And then the next meeting, the board will review all of those comments. They review every single comment we get in a public meeting. They have to either agree or disagree to that comment in a public meeting. So if someone says in the meeting, we don't in the comments, we don't like cursive, the board can say we agree with that or we don't agree. If they agree with that, cursive will be removed. If they don't agree, cursive will stay. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the next meeting, the board will take action to approve the standards. And then they go into effect whenever the effective date of the standards is.
Thank you, McCall. I appreciate that. Okay, so Christy made some comments about the job of this committee. And so any comments, anything that'll help us move ahead with this? Okay, so go ahead, Barbara.
I totally understand the comments about not doing this in terms of economic impact, but I also have a really hard time separating it because most of the standards, schools that don't have resources can find a way to teach these with what they have. Some schools will need to make purchases that aside, but they do have an economic impact. And as someone who oversees a district of 9,000 students, it means we have to take something away. And so I want to make sure that the committee understands that for AA districts, I don't know a curriculum director in the state who could say, oh yeah, I have an extra 10,000. It means we have to take something away. And it doesn't mean that we're not putting, or that in my opinion, I'm not thinking about what's best for kids. I am thinking about what's best for kids. I don't want to have to take away what we have now. I want to be able to add to it. So I just want to have a solution to this, or a way that gives districts flexibility until the legislature does mandate it and actually appropriates money for it.
Okay. Okay, so go ahead, Clifton.
Oh, sorry.
And then Christy.
For argument's sake, since this has come up multiple times now, because we've mentioned importance, what is less important than this? What would be cut? I'm curious, like in my perspective as a parent, and I wonder that this discussion has even come up, that it was presented and then tabled at the legislature. I'm curious as what would be cut if this was implemented. Like, it is important.
I can tell you for Missoula. For Missoula, we would have to look at all of our curriculum products and subscriptions, and one of them would have to go. So it would probably be science or social studies that would have some sort of an impact. So for us, I don't know about the other districts. When I know what we pay for curriculum subscriptions, one of those would have to go. So some other curricular area would have an impact for us if we have to buy these materials. And I think it's important to know these are annual purchases. There aren't handwriting companies that give you a product and say you can copy this endlessly forever. These are annual purchases. So it's a $15,000 to $20,000 annual cost. To do 2 grade levels would be plus 20,000. When we tried to purchase for my elementary school, and our PTA did help us, it was about $10,000 a year for a small elementary school to do handwriting in kindergarten through 2nd grade. So I think when you think in terms of $10,000 per AA elementary school, it really does start to add up. So for us, it would mean we would cut something else, some other curricular access or support that we provide currently.
Hey, Christy.
I guess I was just saying, so it seems that we still have this proposal here in front of us. And so I just wonder where we are with the proposal. Was that to take this one off, or, I mean,
So the last proposal,
I just got a little lost, that's all.
Yeah, because there's three that have happened since that we really haven't totally checked. The proposal, Justine made a proposal to move it to guidance documents, and then Marie made a proposal to change some of the wording. So let's just check out that wording first. And that doesn't mean, Justine, that you have to change your mind. It just means I would like to look to see what the wording is that Marie has attempted, to see if that would help bring people together around this. And I think it was second grade, but not third grade. And then can you give us the one that you had, Marie?
It's on the screen. Claire captured it there for a second.
Okay, Claire, can you read that? And then I see Justine's hand up.
Yeah, so there are 4 on there. The second one is just to maintain it as it is. That last one is printing upper and lowercase letters with automaticity and accuracy, including the introduction of cursive.
Okay. Justine?
Just looking for clarification, what would that look like then, including the introduction of cursive? What does that look like in practice?
Christy?
I think that's why I like the broadness of this, because I think keeping it with including the introduction of cursive, then in the guidance documents, the team that's putting guidance documents together can come into what that looks like. Students learning the letters, students learning, to write their name. Maybe it's that they've learned their signature as part of this in the guidance documents. Again, that wouldn't go in here, but I think that would be what that would start to look like as far as in those guidance documents, the how of that.
Thanks, Christy. So then, sorry, I just jumped in. I'm going to follow up on that.
That's
So if
okay.
I'm providing direction for teachers on how to do this, if that's very like guidance documents, it's pretty open-ended, that gives an opportunity for people to practice this in their own way, not associated to a curriculum. So the potential for misteaching cursive could happen, correct? I mean, is that an assumption?
I would like not to presume that our teachers would misteach things, I guess. That's we have experts in the classroom, so hopefully that would not really.
We absolutely do. I just worry that some of our, we were talking the other day about we're 2003, right? Some of our teachers were born in 2003, so they may not have experienced a curriculum that taught them how to teach cursive either. So it goes back to just making sure that if we're going to ask them to do this, we're gonna have some really clear guidance, possible access to resources that could be free for our districts.
Okay, Janelle?
I feel like this comment was going to take us back in a circle, but it seems weird to me that we have introduced cursive and we've dropped it in and then we never speak of it again. It seems like there needs to be some continuation, whether it's in guidance or not. Just what do we do then? I mean, we introduce it in second grade and then it's just gone. So I don't know, that seems a little odd to me.
Meaning that because the current proposal is for this proposed language here and then to not have it in third grade. So it's just a comment, not a proposal. Other comments? Okay, I am going to just check this one out though, okay? Is there any disagreement to the current proposal for second grade only to add this language, printing upper and lowercase letters with automaticity and accuracy, including the introduction of cursive? And then there is a proposal for a need for some very strong guidance around this. So I'm assuming Claire and Amy captured that when it was brought up. Okay, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, seeing no disagreement, you've come to a consensus on that. Now I want to check the whole package. Can you put the numbers up there for me? Because I'd like to say them. Just for the record. Is there one that just has our repeal and I think you sent it to begin with. Let me see if I can open it up. Okay, so the original recommendation was to repeal. Is there any disagreement with repealing? And you'll have to put your speaker up because I'm looking at my screen, so you'll have to just speak up. And then it was proposed to adopt these new items from 10.53.414, which is literacy competencies, through K through 12, including the language you've just added, as well as the glossary, which is 10.53.426. Any disagreement with that package moving forward? Kind of get back to you here. Okay, I don't see any disagreement with that. So we are going to go ahead and let's talk about that impact statement. Really well done, you guys. I know that was really, really hard work. And so I appreciate you listening to each other in the way that you did. And I know that even with that coming to consensus, there are people who have some angst around how that will play out. Crystal?
Yeah, can we just take a look at the other grades that were changed prior to this meeting and just make sure that in this committee that we are in agreement that we're not changing them for third and fourth and see that on the document?
Absolutely, yes. Yep. So they're wanting to look at all the final language and see that that proposed language has been removed then. So the middle column in blue is where you have landed, and so there's nothing there. So is that red going to stay there, or are we going to move that? Because she wants to make sure that that is removed since it's they've got it. Yeah, that's good. Are there any other grades you wanted to look at, Crystal?
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering, like, will the original language that need to go back in right now? Like
what was in 3 before the proposed red?
I guess I'm not looking at the other document. I don't have pulled up on my screen, but if it was changed in any other places prior to this meeting.
It
Only
was
those two, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Those two, okay.
Yep, only those two, nothing beyond this third grade one.
Yeah.
So
and these were just proposals that they brought knowing that you were going to have to come back together. So nothing else would have been changed. You had a consensus on that, so that it could only have come back as a proposal.
So in third grade, is it all scratched out or just the part about cursive?
Just the part that the red is, it was never in the document before. They brought it as a proposal, and so they just removed it since that was part of the proposal, was to have it in second grade and not have it here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep, the original encoding only lived in first grade previous to these proposals. In terms of printing and upper and lowercase letters, we had the other encoding ones, but just this one.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I still don't see any disagreement, but I do think we need to go look at that economic impact statement. And I'd like to, since you are here, let's look at, you folks have had a chance to do some work on that since we were together. Is that correct, Amy or Claire?
Yep, I will take that one because once we're done here, I'm no longer an NRC member and then it goes back to my work.
Okay. Okay, so let them see what you did, and then we want to have a chance for them to talk about, the addition of this cursive here.
Yes, so I dropped in the chat the live survey link. You can enter in like ABCD. You don't have to have anything, and I'll delete anything out before it gets posted. And then also the PDF survey link that you have projected right here. We took all your feedback. Amy and Claire and we went back through the notes to make sure it was aligned with your feedback in terms of, like, for Janelle example, including the one-room schoolhouse and things like that, making sure that was on there. I did clean it up from the previous version also just to make it more simple in terms of understanding, but of course, any other ideas you have for things to be included. We backed off a little bit on the staff questions only because the staff questions aren't required within the economic impact. We did that more of a service with math because that math is not required for 4 credits in high school, but K-12 we get ELA K-12. So we did change some of those things, but thank you for any suggestions you have as you go through it. And Claire, will you take notes for me or do I need to? Thanks, pal. Oops.
Okay. Okay, so anywhere you have a comment, just let Claire and Amy know, okay? Make sure that the questions that exist, is that going to cover everything that you need to know now that you have made a change? Christy?
I think I have on this one, sorry, do you mind going back to question 20? Just one thought that I have on this is the estimated cost by grade level for updated curriculum. I wonder if we need to just, and maybe it's up in the other one. I just feel like we need to clarify what's here in italics. And I don't know if we maybe put the italics up above, but it really is based on these standard changes, not just regular curriculum revision and updating. It's what are the changes to the curriculum requiring? And I don't know if we can make that more clear somehow. That's, I think all I would, if someone has an idea how to do that, I don't know, maybe. Because it's really trying to get at that difference here.
The content standards as
These new-
opposed to.
Yeah, these new standards, you know, are they going to cause this versus just regular curriculum updates, I guess. I don't know.
Okay,
how to-
Erin has her hand up, but it's probably something separate. So let's just make sure this does say on question 20 that it has that focus that it needs to have for content, a curriculum associated with content standards, I think is what you're.
Changes, yeah, these changes.
Changes.
Scroll up a little, Amy, because up above. If that covers it or not, Christy, I can bold, underline anything.
Would you scroll down a little? Sorry, so I can see the next one. The next question. Thank you.
That takes care of that then? Okay. Erin?
This is just a formatting question. Do you put the questions in order by number or do they stay in this order?
So it auto-populates the Q21, Q22, and then as I shuffle things around, I'm gonna delete those out and make sure they're updated because when we move things around to make more sense, it automatically does that. So thank you.
Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you.
Yeah, like that one, for instance, I moved it up because it made, or where it was, it made more sense there versus in the other spot. I don't know how to turn that feature off, but I can take it away. I do think you would notice, will you scroll up just to the question that has the cost by grade band? The estimates we have is higher at the K2 level because of the needs for decodables and those things and just extra supplementary materials at the K2. Anything else you would like to add on to that would be important or note. Also, when you fill it out as an individual later on would be wonderful too.
Okay, any requests for edits? Justine?
Not a request for edit, maybe just some information for me. When this is reviewed on the OPI's end, and it indicates there's a significant cost or associated cost with updating materials, what
Yep.
conversation happens and is there action that's taken?
Yeah, so I know McCall's ready to come off mute also. So what we do is we prepare an economic impact statement that takes and collates all this information. And then the math one is sent out to you so you could see like what that overall, and if every school across the state were to replace all their math curriculum, it came out to $30 million. We didn't believe that every school needed to replace all of their curriculum across the whole state based on those revisions. So that is not what we recommended. So then in partnership with Board of Public Ed, we go to a legislative interim committee and we shared it with that. So then it kind of tells the story. So if the legislative committee decides, yes, actually there is a substantial economic impact in partnership with Board of Public Ed again, the process is that the superintendent then requests funds in her budget for the upcoming. So with the math, she requested, I want to say $2 million, $5 million overall. Thank you, McCall. In especially looking at the high school substantial changes that we had in those math high school standards. And so that we can have partnerships to create additional guidance document, really look at pathways for our students and other supplementary materials to help the schools with. And so that was a request from the superintendent to legislature. I don't think we've heard back on if that was awarded or not, but that's also part of that HQIM conversation we had with that bill. And so the legislators are looking at both components of, they realize there's some funding needed, and it's just the avenue in which they decide to give that, if they decide to give it. McCall, Christy, feel free to jump in. And I know Julie's listening to in the background with any other further information.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. I think the only thing I would add is the HQIM conversation is actually really important because the legislature has never granted funding for changes to content standards. Never. Zero. How many times have we been through these processes? A lot. So I think it's really important to note that the HQIM process is kind of our silver bullet for this, to be honest. They're trying it out with math, which would require also the superintendent to then sort of acquire some low-cost curriculum. That could also include cursive, so that you all wouldn't have to pay for it. I mean, be paying for it in different ways, I suppose. But so I think the HQIM conversation is actually really exciting because for once we have a way to actually get funding that's not like going to the legislature and Section E and begging.
Thank you, McCall. Okay, any other needed edits or comments? Okay, with that being said, I'm going to close the session. And I'm not going to keep you on here for a long closure. But I do appreciate that you have joined us today and that it was difficult. It was probably the most difficult thing that we talked about the whole time doing these content standards. And so over here in Idaho, we've got a lot of stuff going on in the legislature too. So I'm keeping my eyes on that and you folks as well. So thank you. So we can stop at 9 o'clock here, unless there's any parting communication that needs to happen. Thank you, JC. There should be notes that you'll send out. And then will you send out the final we just only made one change, so you won't need to send out this economic impact statement again. So just some notes for review.
Yep, it'll go out to the field here in the next few weeks. We're just, Claire's done an incredible job taking all your work and putting it into a summary document. So that will be ready to go here quickly so that we can get it into the hands of the field for public comment.
Okay, and then if this group here, is there a need for anything that goes with the superintendent with these? I know there's some point, we're okay with that. Okay, Clifton.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, especially after this session, I really do appreciate everything that every professional does, especially those on here that when listening to me, I understand as a parent, I'm pushing for extra for you to do more with the less that you have. While we're sitting here, I looked up and I found that Montana ranks below the median student allowable funds. They fall at right around 13,000, where the median is 15,000 per student. In Idaho, it's 10,000 per student. So trying to expect more with staying within those restraints, I get that. I looked up the number of states that also have implemented this same rule, and they're well below our standard of how much we receive. So I'm figuring that there's got to be a way to figure this out, and there's got to be some wiggle room in there. So I do appreciate you listening to me and then taking my comments and my perspective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Clifton. Claire, any public comment?
No, I didn't get any emails.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thanks, you guys, and have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.